Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm back.
You're looking better.
Yeah, I'm feeling better. The topic of this morning's message is near and dear to my heart, and I have to give just as much credit to my mom. We had a wonderful time yesterday morning co-creating this message from a particular author named James Hollis, a man with a PhD in psychology. He published a book entitled Living an Examined Life. And so we know that self-examination is a big part of the Swedenborgian Christian faith. That our main focus in life is turning from a chrysalis or a caterpillar to a chrysalis to a butterfly, the transformation of a person into a heavenly angel. And so this chapter of James Hollis's book appealed to Mom and I because of our Swedenborgian faith. And it just spoke to us so clearly at this time in the first part of the year, where we're entering in January into a new year, and we're looking at our past, we're reflecting, we're thinking about what we hope for in the new year. And so we stumbled, or she pointed me to a chapter that is about exorcising the ghosts of our past that bind us. Isn't that? Now, you'd think this would be a Halloween sermon. But we just couldn't help ourselves. We just thought the substance of the message would give credit to James Hollis in this message. And so he proposes, from a Jungian psychology point of view, that we all live in haunted houses. Yeah, we all live in haunted houses. Think of the haunted house as a metaphor for your inner life. Uh-oh. Haunted houses, a metaphor for our inner life. In particular, when our memories haunt us. And how many here have haunting memories? Okay. And that's one level of a question. But there's other ways that we can be haunted. So he says we all live in haunted houses. Do you ever wonder, like this time of year, as you reflect, if you have a quiet moment? I don't know if you're tending to do this, and if you just sit and you light a candle, literally you light a candle in your dark house, and you sit and meditate and pray, or perhaps you light a candle when you're lying in a bubble bath. Anybody do that? I do. So you light a candle and you reflect on your life. Or perhaps you're walking in a beautiful January winter forest. Or perhaps you're looking out of a window and thinking about your life. And how many of you wonder how your life is turning out to this point? Some of you might be a little down about how your life has become. Some of you might be very encouraged and uplifted. But how many of you have wondered how your life is turning out, and you look back at the years and you see repetitions? You do this over and over again. You choose the same things over and over again. How many of you see unbeneficial patterns play out in your life? And you look back and you say, I just can't get that monkey off my back. I just can't stop doing this. Or I can't start doing something different. So the question then bids, how free are we if we keep repeating ourselves and we keep repeating patterns that are unbeneficial? How free are we if we just keep doing the same things? Well, James Hollis, based on the Jungian psychology, would say we're not as free as we think we are. I promise this ends well. But he says we're not as free as we think we are, especially when we're making critical decisions, because emotionally we get tripped up. Our emotions can sabotage out of fear the big decisions that we make in our life. James Hollis has a beautiful quote, a funny quote really, it's really hilarious. He says, no one rises in the morning and thinks to him or herself, today I will do the same stupid things that I have done for decades. We don't do it. We don't say to ourselves, I choose to do the same stupid things. Chances are, though, guess what?
We do it.
We do.
It's new.
Chances are not in our favor in that regard. Chances are we really do the same stupid things over and over again. But why? So James Hollis, from the Jungian perspective, addresses that question. Why do we keep repeating the same stuff that does not benefit us? And he proposes that every decision we're faced with in life is influenced by the ghosts of our past. Who are the ghosts? Let's start with our family of origin. In our raising, we observe the things that are said, the things that are done, the things that are not said, the things that are not done. And we pattern naturally, as is God's design, we pattern from our family of origin. We do and we don't do the things that we see repeated and reinforced. That's a part of the ghost in us. We like to find ghosts out there. But really, the task is, where are the ghosts that bind us in here? Part of the answer is the repetitious behaviors and the lack of choices and actions and sentiments that we see in our family of origin. And that's just the way God designed it. That's the way baby ducks follow their mamas. That's the way we follow what our parents and our caregivers and our role models do. Those are part of the ghosts that need to be exorcised out of us. Another ghost are the subtle energies, the collective energies, ready for this? Of our ancestors. Our ancestors didn't just exist back then. Our ancestors, through subtle collective energies, are so with us. James Hollis proposes that part of the ghosts that we must exercise to be our true, authentic, beautiful self that God made is that we must acknowledge and examine from who we came and know our history. Ask questions, examine it, know where we came from and who led up to our parents and what was a part of our parents that was grafted into us. I promise you the news is good. Another ghost that we must exercise is the spirit or the mood of a period in history from which we were born and in which we were raised. In the German, that's called a Zeitgeist. You know that one? That is called Zeitgeist. That is the spirit or the mood in the period of history in which we were born. And that time in history affected us. And that is a ghost that affects at the natural level, and it's a God-given blessing, really. And it's all these ghosts are affecting every choice that we make, as it should be. But it's very important to be clear where these voices come from. Every decision we make is influenced by all of these things. And to be clear, we have a physical, natural brain and mind, don't we? That's a gift. We can orient ×3 in this earth experience. And we have a spiritual mind that is actually a lot stronger when we learn how to use it. So our natural minds, though, our natural brains and minds like things easy. And our natural thinking minds are reflexive. And they like to use the default mode. So if something comes along and happens along our path in any given moment of a day, our natural brains will kick into default mode and we will do what we always learn to do. We will say what we learned to say, we'll believe what we were taught to believe, and we will not do what we were taught not to do. And we will stay away from an opportunity if we're taught not to go there. So that's the natural mind. The natural mind wants it easy, it's reflexive, and it operates on default. The spiritual mind is very subtle, much more powerful, but it takes practice. And it takes a very clear choice to shift into that gear, because the natural mind has a lot of force quickly, and it will be loud and it will be forceful. The spiritual mind is very powerful but very subtle. And it's important to know the difference, and you have both tools. So our natural minds are reflective and operate on default mode. And if we do not examine the clues, God gives us clues every second of every day. There are millions of clues in a day. Every moment, God's giving us a clue. But our spiritual minds have to attune to those clues. If we miss the clues, what happens? We become compliant with what is. We become compliant, we become controlling, and we become evasive. This is all James Hollis, brilliant work. And he talks about how important it is that we engage in our thinking spiritual minds, which means we're tuning in. And we have to make that choice. Lord, what is your will? Let's say a sign hits us. Now, let's say we have a flat tire heading to work or heading to a doctor appointment. And we could really just go with it and not pay attention. But perhaps there's a sign in the pause. Perhaps there's a sign in self-care or protection. Or maybe there's a sign and somebody's going to come across your path to help you with your car that you never would have met otherwise. There's so many ways to look at every situation. But if we don't really open up to God's will in any moment, we become compliant, we give in to what is, and we go with it, whether it's political, whether it's spiritual, whether it's physical and health issues. We just become compliant and we just don't engage. And things happen. All evil needs to happen in this world is for good people to do nothing. We become compliant when we just let our physical brains be reflexive and in default. If we engage our spiritual minds, we're asking for the lead of someone who knows so much more than us. When we allow only our physical brains and minds to work in our lives, what happens is all of a sudden, we might come to New Year's and think about our life and realize we've been lacking peace. We don't want to self-examine because there's pain in there. And that's okay. This is all a part of the design of existence. We are to have these tensions. So if we're not engaging our spiritual mind and God's will in our life in every moment with the signs and the clues that are right in front of us, we have a sense that we're not in peace. We have a sense that we're discontent with life and with other people in our lives. We're not content with others. And then we have, this sense that even our faith in God is weakened, because that takes exercise too. That takes intention and exercise too. We live in haunted houses. and many voices of our past influence every moment and every decision that we make. Over the years, we build up protective programs. We actually create armor around our hearts, around our very energy systems. We have an energy system. The Eastern religions teach us this, the Eastern beliefs, that we have a whole energy system of chakras. And it is possible to be blocked. I know, because I went to one of these chakra, bless you, one of these chakra clearing experiences early in my ministry. And I went to this chakra healer, and she says, all your chakras are open except your highest. She goes, what do you do for a living? I went, I'm a minister. So that was a wake-up call. It's possible to wear protective programming so that we block our hearts and we find problems with everyone else, and it protects us from our own fears. We become hardwired that way over time, and I love this phrase that James Hollis uses in his book. What forms, you ready for this? You'll love this, Alan.
I'm listening.
I know you are. What forms in us is a shadow government. A shadow government of unchallengeable authority. So that we become authority in our own ego. We become an unchallengeable authority, and change cannot happen then. We know what's right, and we know the way that it should be, even though our true, authentic self lies asleep and longs for us to really live. That's what self-examination and New Year's is the best for, by the way. Are you really living your life? Are you alive? That's the greatest haunting, by the way, that James Hollis talks about. We're haunted the most by the question, am I really living? Am I really living?
That's you're expressing beautifully what a famous writer once said, William Faulkner. He said, the past isn't really even the past.
Yeah, that's right.
It's exactly,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's the living, the prejudices.
And one of my professors, Reverend Dr. George Dole, would say, in any moment, are we really making all the choices that are before us? Really, it's all of our past. It's all that we've known. It's the angels and the demons on the other side. There's so much that influences every choice in us. And really, it is a timeless place. It's a place where all the voices and influences of our past and our present are really touching the choices that we make. So we have this shadow government of unchallengeable authority. This is our shadow side, or invisible energies that hold us captive. And Carl Jung, this is another German word, he talks about how sometimes we are so frozen and held captive by our lower self, those invisible, unbeneficial energies, that we experience a kind of possessed state. The title of this message talks about exorcising the ghosts. We live in a kind of possessed state of all these voices and influences that aren't really us. We're in there somewhere. The authentic true self is completely unique and needs its life and expression. And if we allow too much of the ghosts of our past to override and think for us, that true authentic self doesn't really live. And we find ourselves in a state of constant longing for something we don't even know what it is. But it's us. We're longing for ourselves. Isn't that an amazing concept? He calls that Griffinheit. Don't get that on you. Griffinheit. And that means being in a kind of possessed state by all the things that influence us, but not really operating from our true beautiful, God-given, authentic self. That's Ern Griffin height. It overwhelms us, it grips us, and we say and do the things we're expected or that we're taught to do, but none of it is really us. And then we're really in a state of poverty. That's poverty. But, as I told you at the beginning of this is all good news that ends well. We can't give up hope because of one thing. And that's one thing only. Because of who God is. God's government is much stronger than our shadow government.
Yep.
An authoritarian leader in us. God's government has everything over our shadow government. So that we are more free and can exercise the ghosts of our past that are really a gift. That's kind of the twist here, is that every ghost of our past is a gift because it's a teacher. And it helps to form all these voices and people and influences of our past, help to form choices for us so that we can find that self in there. It takes time. Now, you know that image, I think it's Thich Nhat Hanh, but I'm not sure, the image of the lotus flower.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just it very gently and very slowly opens up. And what's inside there is you. See, so there's just so many forces that need to contribute to who you are. And that's all a part of the plan. We are to strive for that self. It's the treasure hidden in the field from our scriptures. It's the treasure we're to look for. And when we find it, that's it. There's the peace. There's the joy. There's the life well lived. So we are to examine. That is the call, especially our unbeneficial choices. And we are to make changes. The changes, even one small change, God does a million blessings with one change you make. If you're thinking on a stream of negative thought, shift it. I promise you God will make miracles from that one choice to change the negative stream of thought that we're in. It's amazing what God can do with one small, tiny seed of a choice. Trust it and do it. But it's scary to change. Why?
We're not controlling. We're out of control.
Yep.
It's not comfortable.
It's uncomfortable. It's just, I've always been aware how resistant to change I am. I like things the way that they are. I love the things the way they are. But Joe has taught me, actually, in our marriage. He says, Renee, if you don't let things change, new things can't come in. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But, we hold on so tightly. Why? Because change challenges many things. Change challenges the belief system we were raised in, which as Jesus or any great leader or teacher of any religion will teach you, if they're true, genuine leaders, they will challenge you to question your beliefs. It is not a position of strength to just let your beliefs sit there and not look at them. That is not strong. What's strong is to pick it apart and see what Swedenborg himself would say. Don't believe me because I've written these things. Test them, live them, see if it works. So change challenges our belief system. It challenges our upbringing. It challenges the culture in which we were raised. It challenges our race. It challenges the imagination of our complexes, our crazy little complexes that we all have. I love how James Hollis puts this. Change challenges the complexes in our minds that we have built up, these houses of glass. And it causes us to fear that those will fall. And our imaginations that come from our complexes, we can construe all kinds of things, can't we? Change challenges everything that we have made our own philosophy and our own belief system, our own theology. And as a final note, Change challenges the perception we have of our relatively small lives in the face, you ready for this? Of our immense possibilities. And that's not a put down. Our perception of our relatively small lives has to face the amazing, immense potential that God has for you and me. And that's not easy. You are capable of even more. And Marianne Williamson said, we're afraid of our own power, really. And I would like to say the power of God in us. We are afraid, bless you. We are afraid of the power of God that moves through us. So that's why we resist. That's why we don't look at the ghosts that haunt us. And we'd rather project the ghosts out there in our houses and in our lives. Yes.
I would say, I'm just quick, but
Yeah.
We have freedom to do this, you know. We're free to do this. Now, and something Jesus said in the Bible, he said, and you don't even see the signs of the times, because it says in the Bible also, a little child will lead them. Well, we talk about Trump, you know, he's a 7-year-old and everything, but that's because we've allowed this to happen. I mean, if you have a 2 minuses make a plus, right? So he's allowing this to happen.
Yes.
So we learn from it.
And so we take it inside ourselves then too, because whatever's happening out here, then it's the balance of the investigation. We must see what's happening out there. Social justice. We must, as a church and as a heaven in miniature, we must look at social justice issues and act on them. And at the very same time, we must also look at what's happening in us. So, the concluding, hopeful, encouraging note is that God's government will always be stronger than our shadow government. God will lead us. Mighty Counselor, Prince of Peace, Mighty God. That's who God is. That's one thing, and that's stronger than all these things that build up to the point where we find who we really are. And we're so complex, aren't we? We are so complex. Thanks be to God, because from that complexity, we find the one. Amen.
Amen.